Okay, without further ado, we are going to have our final panel of the conference. It's the Economic Development Panel, and I am going to call up our participants, and I'm going to introduce our moderator. I'm sure a lot of you know Chief Clarence Louie since December 1984 when he was first elected as Chief of the Soyuz Indian Band, part of the Okanagan Nation in south central British Columbia. Clarence Joseph Louie has consistently emphasized economic development as a means to improve his people's standard of living. Under his 30-plus years of direction, the band has become a multi-faceted corporation that owns and manages 9 businesses and employs hundreds of people. In 1998, the Soyuz Indian Band Development Corporation was formed to manage and provide strategic direction to the existing businesses and as well as seek out new economic opportunities. Clarence was appointed the CEO. And of course, Chief Louie's constant message is socio-economic development is the foundation for First Nations self-reliance. Our communities need to create our own jobs and revenue sources.
Thank you. It's great to be back in Treaty 7 territory. I had a chance today to have a few words with the Chief of Tsuut'ina, and we talked about business. That's what I see we're talking about here today. How do we create more jobs and bring more revenue into our communities? At Osoyoos, I'm now into my 31st year of being chief. Grand Chief Norton, you're still ahead of me in that regard. So at Osoyoos, we're looking for partners in cannabis. We're looking for partners in lease developments. And we've had up to 10 different cannabis producers approach us to lease some of our property in the Oliver area. We currently have shovel-ready property ready to go. We've signed some LOIs with some cannabis companies, and we're currently meeting with a few more. I was meeting some on the coast on Saturday that are interested in actually growing the product outdoors. And I told the company that I met with on the coast on Saturday that we have over 100 acres of shovel-ready, irrigated property ready to go. So I hope in the upcoming months, we can announce formally who our partners will be in the cannabis industry. I hope with our highway property in Osoyoos that we will have some dispensaries happening. Osoyoos is known for a First Nation that is a business First Nation. We have broken grounds in many ways, being amongst the first to get involved in what the presenter was up here talking about, alcohol. We've had a winery on our reserve since 1980. We've been growing grapes since 1969. So we have been in the wine industry for many, many decades. And I look forward to being in the cannabis industry. At our industrial park, I often kid our investors that we also broke ground a couple of years ago, being the first First Nation to ever allow a provincial prison on its res, where we leased the province of BC 20 acres. So right in the same area, I look forward to, we have Vincor Winery, Jackson Triggs' biggest winery in Western Canada. Next to that, we have a provincial prison, at least 20 acres from that. I hope to have somebody growing pot right in the same neighborhood. So we all have all 3 bases covered at Osoyoos. So I really want to thank the organizers for putting this on. And of course, like the chiefs that are up here and the chiefs that are down there in the crowd and all the council people. We've been getting many emails over the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 years about this emerging industry. Osuyus, like the Mohawk people, we're a cross-border tribe. When the British and the Americans put that border there, half of my people ended up on the other side of the border in Washington State, where they are now growing hemp. So some of my people are already growing hemp. Colville tribe. And our council went down there and looked at their hemp farm a couple of months ago. So I hope with all the activity and all the emails and a lot of First Nations, people are starting to kick our tires in this industry. I've seen some First Nations in the Chilliwack area that are taking the sovereign route. They've already got a dispensary opened, which the province of BC says doesn't have a license. If we go back to another industry called gaming, all across the country, the province has said we needed your license. And I really applaud those First Nations that stood up and opened up casinos or opened up bingos. In fact, at Osuyus, we have what's called an unlicensed bingo. We've had it for 20 years. The province is asking us, here's a license. We want to give you guys our license. We still haven't answered them on that one. So this is such a cool time period to be involved in the upcoming year. I look forward to meeting those First Nations that are going to take on this industry. And I realize some don't want it on their res. That's fine. That's their choice. But there's many like Osuyus that are saying, come on in, let's do it. Let's make this happen. Because we want our people to have the same standard of living that the non-natives have. I always tell the mayors and councils across this country, and it really upsets me that wherever I go in Indian country, half the reserves in this country have unemployment over 50%. That's not right. When that non-native town right next to them, or the closest non-native town, has unemployment under 10%. Non-native people get upset with their leaders when they have double-digit unemployment. I'm starting to tell Native youth, we should be getting upset with our leaders when our reserves have double-digit unemployment. So chiefs and councils, we have to focus on any which ways and means to reduce the unemployment of our people and to bring in much needed money. Back home, one of my elders told me one of the most important words in our language back home is skilau. In Okanagan, that means money. So as a chief, I love making money for my community. I love it because money equals opportunity. Because everything costs money. So I look at cannabis as a chance for Osuyus to create more jobs and bring in more income for the Osuyus Indian Band, because we cannot depend on the federal government to look after any of our programs and services. And also because we want to be the economic horse in our region. So I look forward to meeting more companies in the cannabis industry because I love competition. And out of the 10 or so that are kicking our tires at Osuyus, I hope that you'll see in the media, newspapers or TV, that at Osuyus we'll be digging a shovel soon on one of the biggest production facilities in Western Canada and open up dispensaries on the Osuyus Indian Reserve. So with that, I want to introduce someone who I finally had a chance to meet in Ontario about a year ago, Chief Joe Norton. I want to thank you first for what your people did back during the Oka crisis, Because many of us don't realize, we forget that how your people stood up to the Canadian government had a spin-off benefit to what we do back in BC. Because not many years ago, an ancestral grave was dug up in a provincial campground. And I told the government, we're not moving our ancestor and allowing you to dig up our ancestors. And we're not going to be good little Indians and bring that ancestor back to the reserve. That ancestor was put there over 2,000 years ago. That's where that ancestor will stay. And I thought to myself, what the Mohawks did back there in Oka, it's helped out Osuyus. It has helped us out because that gave me the courage to stand up to the provincial government in BC when they tried to move one of my ancestors. So lim limped in my language, Joe, that means thank you to you and your people. Joseph Norton has been a leader in Kahnawake for 5 decades. First elected to the Mohawk Council in 1978. He has served as Grand Chief for an unprecedented 26 consecutive years. He entered the world of private business in 2004 and returned to the political forum in 2015, successfully attaining a 14th term as Grand Chief. So Grand Chief Joe Norton, welcome to Treaty 7.
Welcome to everybody that's come here today, and not just today, but days previous. I have a bit of a problem right at this moment. But first of all, I wanted to thank the Tsuut'ina for hosting this wonderful, on their territory, this wonderful gathering, this wonderful opportunity. Thank them and thank Canada for dumping a problem on all of us. That's the way I look at it. You have the chief peacekeeper from Kahnawake sitting over here in the front. And we've had many discussions about the tasks we have to face in terms of what's coming down the road and what's here right now in having to deal with this issue. So it's a problem. We also had to consult throughout all of the community, the various organizations, the various structures that we have, social service, the medical, educational field. We brought all those people together to talk to them about what do we do with this, our social service, health divisions, our schools, and gathering opinions. Then we had to go into the community. We had to talk to all the various sectors and find out from them, from within, what people are thinking, parents, grandparents, uncles, aunts. We're still going through that process. We've not completed that process. We've drafted a law, which I think is a very good law, which rivals province and federal legislation that's out there now. We're going to implement that. There's opposition in the community, no doubt about it, because we have issues with individuals who want to go into the business themselves. They want no law. They want nothing. All they want to do is do their thing, not have to be answerable or responsible to anybody. And they said, one thing we're never going to do again, we're never going to allow our community to find itself in the same situation as the tobacco industry, where you have 35, 40, 50, 60 outlets all over the place unregulated. And I take responsibility for that. So this is not going to happen this time around. Regulation, you got to follow. And it's our regulation, because we have a peacekeeping department, that has its hands full right now, does not have all of the tools that's necessary, not to say that they're not capable, but we have 100,000 cars a day that go through our community, non-native people go back and forth. They're responsible for that too. So we have a lot on our table, a lot on our plate. And we have to take care of that. We have to be very careful how we handle this. We went through a poll, a survey, 1 week in the community. And it was interesting because we were quite surprised with the reaction. 2 questions were asked, and the reaction was very well accepted in terms of what the people wanted. Yes, medical cannabis. Yes, they also looked at the commercial side. Wasn't too much support for recreational, but for the sale of the drugs in the community, the products, the byproducts from marijuana was well accepted. On your agendas, my name is there, it says Canopy Growth Corporation. Well, I don't really represent them. We don't have an agreement or arrangement with them. We have talked, we have a term sheet sitting there right now. And at some point in time, we either have to say, yes, we have a partnership, or no, we don't have a partnership. But we've heard a lot of different presentations here. Our sister community, Akwesasne, from west of us, wonderful presentation by Lorraine. I'm a bit jealous and humbled. They're like 6 months, maybe a year ahead of us. We should be where they're at. But because of needing to talk to the people and make sure we're doing the right thing, that we have had to not rush into this. For those of you who don't know, Kahnawake is located 15 minutes from downtown Montreal. We have a major bridge, the Mercier Bridge, that comes over into our community, and 2 major highways that go east and west. And that's where these 100,000 people that they come over and go back to where they live, in the surrounding area around us. So every day we have to look at that, we have to put up with that, and it is more than a nuisance. But at the same time, as I've said on many occasions to leaders in the government, federal and provincial, we have no resources. We have no natural resources anymore. All of that's been taken away from us. We can't hunt, we can't fish, we can't trap. We have almost 7,000 people that live in that small little piece of land underneath the Mercier Bridge, as it was once described. So our natural resources are those 100,000 people. They're our clients. They buy, we trade, we sell, we do everything with them. And we're a community that is quite aggressive in terms of making sure that we take care of our people. We still continue the age-old trade of construction, ironwork, building bridges, building major skyscrapers. I worked in New York. I worked on the World Trade Center. We still have a small group of people that still do that, but the majority have become business people, entrepreneurs. Not to say that'll ever phase out, but we've grown. You know, and it's interesting because I get quite upset when I hear that, you know, we are a burden to the taxpayers, we are takers from government handouts and all of that. Well, every day, and the chief peacekeeper can attest to this, there's on or about 2,000 non-native people that come into our community to work every day because we don't have enough people to fill those positions, or we don't have enough people with these skill sets to take those positions. Doctors, nurses, you name it. We're into the gaming industry, poker rooms. We're soon to go into electronic gaming devices. We have 2 facilities that are going to open up, and they're going to be providing that kind of activity to non-native people. That's our target, not our own people, others. So in all of these facilities that we have, as well as the online gaming industry, we're big into that. We're the only ones in Canada 20 years ago that were doing that. We've had to hire many, many, hundreds of people to work in that industry. So I don't want to ever hear from any government official or anybody or any loudmouth people from the newspaper say, you know, we're a burden to Canada, because we aren't. We employ those 2,000 people. They're taxpayers. They go and they vote in provincial, federal, and municipal elections. And they earn a living on our territory, in our backs, in our backyard. With this issue of cannabis, like I said, I wanted to give you the background in terms of what we've done so far in order to come to a conclusion of what's going to happen. We have had to pass a law. We know that. We could have just left it and allowed anything else to happen, but we looked at the burden on the community, the burden on our law enforcement, the burden on public security, the burden in a lot of different areas. And we take possession of that. We are into the process of setting up a cannabis control board that will look at all aspects. Our board, our people, and ensure that the proper policies and regulations are being implemented. Licensure of either individuals or small companies, what have you. Looking at all of that and making sure that that's intact. That is going to come quite soon. We're also looking at, from a safety point of view, primary issue, the health of our people, setting up our own type of Health Canada oversight. Never mind Health Canada. We're going to take care of that. If we're going to do this, then we're going to do it properly. We want to oversee all of that. That's why this is taking much longer than should have been. And as I said, we've had individuals who wanted to go ahead on their own, do what they damn well please, excuse my expression, but we said, no, that's not going to happen. We placed a moratorium in place. And we said, until the law is in place, until certain things have kicked in, there'll be nobody that's going to open. There'll be nobody that's going to operate. Contrary to what you heard this morning, which is fine for all the other territories, another Mohawk territory, something else different is happening. Yes, and I totally agree on sovereignty in jurisdiction. And I constantly use the peacekeeper policing program in Kahnawake. That came out of a sovereign move. We fired a whole police force because they were under the control of the Quebec government at one point in time. It was way back, almost 40 years ago. And out of that came our peacekeepers. We went through 18 years of no funding for policing from the province or from the federal government. We had to shoulder that burden for that long. And finally, in 1995, federal government, provincial government gave in, came to us, they said, okay, we need to settle this. And we were in debt up to here, if not over and above that. But we stayed the course. And that's what you have to. So you want to talk about sovereignty in jurisdiction. Those are the kinds of moves that you have to make. In this particular situation, you have to be better than them. Because believe it or not, they don't know this industry either. So you seek out the experts that can help, that can advise you. And you take possession of it. It's yours, and you do as your people want and what the industry will bear. And you have to fight for that. That's not given to you. And if you partner, then the partner has to understand, those are the basis of your beliefs. That's the things that you want to do. I want to finish off because my voice is going on me. And I just want to again thank you for the opportunity to be here to make this kind of presentation, to give you a snapshot of what is happening in Kahnawake. And to make sure there's an understanding that we will prevail in one way or another, because that's what we're used to. And again, my hat's off to our sister community, Akwesasne, and the work that they've done and the direction that they've taken. And we hope at some time with any of the other indigenous nations on Turtle Island, we can work together. We can do things progressively. But it's not only in this industry. It's in many other places where someone else has taken possession of our land. Someone else has done something else to push us aside and cut us out of the markets, and have taken it to themselves. So, and we know those areas. We've also looked at them. We've seen them day in, day out. Yaokoa, thank you very much.
Thank you, Grand Chief Norton. Next, Chief Delbert Wapaz. Chief Wapaz has served for 3 years as well as 6 years as an executive member with the Federation of Saskatchewan Indian Nations, FSIN, with a portfolio responsibilities of education, health, lands and resources, and sports, culture, and youth. He is a teacher, administrator, negotiator, and experienced in PR, HR, and finance. And I really love the fact that he speaks fluent Cree. Chief, come on up.
Pamres sa kamachitan nuwag magantig. Netinanas kumawawa. Kiwagamagan no, Chief Louis. Itapo ito mo tagape Pix Questamago mina oto to Treaty 7 netinanas kumagin in tumgwago go tagape mamopiak mino gumagano ta Chief Lee netinanas kumamin gantuge and to the council. I want to say good afternoon to each and every one of you, and I'm happy to be in the Treaty 7 territory here at Satina. And to the Chief and Council of Satina, thank you very much for this invitation to all of us. One of my idols here is Chief Louis, and I remember being back in university on 310 20th Street in Saskatoon. Then it was the SIFC, and the Oka crisis happened. And we were just didn't know how it was going to play out. And I remember seeing this little girl in front on a cover. It was Wanique Horn-Miller. And then I never knew who it was until a later time I found out, who it was and the courage that her and her community has shown all of us, to do what we do in our respective communities. I come from Thunderchild First Nation, and back in 2010, when I went home and got elected, we were on the verge of third-party management. Our financial situation was dire, and we all know, the story that goes with that. I looked at that with the council that we had, and what can we do? The only place that we could cash a check, believe it or not, was the Ramada in Saskatoon. For whatever reason, they accepted our check. I have no idea. But we were able to cash a check there. And the only department that was able to get credit was health, was the health department. So we piggybacked on that, getting a room, booking rooms at the Days Inn in Saskatoon. It was a bad situation for us. But as a community, as council, we came together and we started putting a blueprint together on how do we climb out of this and make our lives better within our community. And it took a lot of tough decisions because it's not popular when you're a chief and you're a councillor, when you have to say no to your people. Because, they're so used to asking and getting. And it's a situation that we had to deal with. Elected to a 4-year term, what can we do? 2010, got elected on October 22nd, had an appeal, went on till December 20th. December 22nd, we're blockading Husky Oil because they owed us $560,000. 3 months later, we settled. For 6 years, we were put in a doghouse from Husky Oil. No support, no recognition, no business opportunities. July 2016, we all hear about the Husky oil spill that happened. And it happened on our land. Who did they have to deal with? Thunder Child First Nation. And we looked at it from a strategic perspective. What should we do? And how should we approach this? We can challenge them, go to court and say, hey, this is what you owe us. This is the calculated damage that we can come up with, and here's how much millions you owe us. Or we can sit down and become true partners and establish a relationship that would benefit us in our community. We had ceremony with our elders directed us, work together. We leveraged off that, and we were able to make an $8 million investment into farming and an $8 million investment into cannabis. And it was tough because one of the things that I realized in all business, in many business, if you don't have the right team that's around you, that protects you, that supports you, you have many sharks out there that are swimming around trying to get Indian monies. And many of our people are being taken advantage of. And people have no problem taking advantage and taking your money, including our own people who are acting on behalf of others. And so, as much as we are here today, seeking that opportunity and trying to understand the business, we are being tapped on the shoulders by different companies, perhaps asking us, and some that are portraying that they're professionals and really trying to leverage off your money. But there are also those who are here in a very sincere way that want to partner up with you and help your community grow. And I commend those people. I commend those companies that do that. When I go back and I look at our $8 million investment, and I look at the $15 million that Thunderchild gets from the federal government to operate its program and services, I look at how much money we can make on own source revenue so we can work towards economic sovereignty and start dictating what happens rather than living under that rule. And we were able to do that because government today, even though we don't make as much as many other First Nations, government treats us different now that we have money than they did when we didn't. And that's just reality. That's their world. That's how they understand it. And it wasn't not too long ago where you had Minister Chuck Stroll that said, we got to support the haves over the have-nots. To me, that's not First Nation. That's not who we are as Indian people. But even as Indian people, we have to be able to smarten up and do our business differently to realize the opportunities that exist in a smart way and take advantage of them. So that's where I go back to Chief Louis and his attitude about business, and when he talks about warriors. Took a page out of his book. So with the Thunderchild Cultivation Facility, we have facility that is high quality indoor cannabis cultivation and processing facility with 14,600 kilograms of expected flower production per annum in the first 2 phases. At full scale, the facility will directly create approximately 150 jobs. One of the things that we realized is that in Thunderchild, on the Husky oil spill, at the high end, we had to have 275 people work. We were a vendor, we were called in, we need 275 people. We realized that a lot of our people, not a lot of our people, but our members who talk about, I want a job, I want to work, there were some that didn't want to work. And we had off-reserve people, band members that were lined up to come in. So one of the realities that we have in our community is multi-generation of unemployment. And where children haven't seen their parents work, or their children didn't see their kids go to school, and so on and so forth. So it's re-educating, reintegrating them into a work program, making them realize that you can do this, you can change your way of life, the quality of life that exists. And it was tough. So as we're working towards creating 150 jobs, we know full well that we are going to tap into the other communities that surround Thunderchild First Nation. And the place that I'm talking about is in Battleford. We bought a 93-acre commercial property, and this is where we're building our cannabis cultivation facility. And that's it up there on the screen. So phase 1 construction has begun and is expected to be completed in Q4 of 2019. We've also then went in and we partnered up with Westleaf Cannabis Inc. And Westleaf is a vertically integrated cannabis company acquiring and developing assets across the cannabis value chain. It's led by an experienced team with proven track record in cannabis operations as well as capital markets. Westleaf has a core focus on retail and product branding to drive customer loyalty and demand for products. Retail allows for control of the consumer purchasing experience in a regulated environment with highly restrictive advertising and packaging. So we realized within our company, that we couldn't only depend on retail. We also wanted to get into extractions. We also wanted to get into cultivation. And so we have an extraction facility here in Calgary that is being retrofitted and being built, being put together in a warehouse, along with our cultivation facility in Battleford and the retail outlets, that we're going to be opening up in the next couple of months. We have what is called a Prairie Records retail concept. Prairie Records is a unique, high-quality, and immersive retail experience that leverages the instinctual tie between cannabis and music. The retail concept offers a unique and tactile experience to increase consumer engagement while offering bespoke branding opportunities. Current rules restrict products to a single color on their packaging and cover most of the package in warning labels. Prairie Records in-store branding opportunities are critical to building brand equity that would normally occur through typical product packaging. So, again, in order to be competitive and to get into the spaces that we want to get into, where the markets are high, we built a brand that we believe that will attract people and will attract, the municipalities to say, come in here. We want to do business with you. We'll give you the license, so on and so forth. So we believe that, with this branding, this is something that we've aspired. This is something we work towards. So our team is highly qualified, a lot of experience. And for us, it was a tremendous opportunity for us in Thunderchild to say, let's do it. And we took the advantage of doing it. And I want to acknowledge, a good friend of mine here, Steve Mason, who was, very instrumental in helping Thunderchild and guiding Thunderchild, in the area of economic development and realizing these opportunities. And a lot of the opportunities come from the relationship you build, because it's trust. And when you trust somebody and you trust that person, you're able to take what is being presented and your membership trust that individual because of who they are. That's the relationship we were able to establish with Steve Mason as well as Pat Whalen. Although Pat Whalen's from Newfoundland, I don't hold that against him. Teasing Pat. But before I close off, I want to acknowledge the Muscapine First Nation and the stand that they're taking. I don't know if the chief's here, Chief Tony Capo. If you're here, if you can stand, Chief Tony, as well as Chief Councillor Dwayne Stonechild, and the leadership, if they're all here. They've taken the stand in Saskatchewan to say, Saskatchewan, we don't need your license. We have an inherent treaty right to do what it is we want. And they're exercising that right. And I hope that we can all give them the support that they need to do that. Because like Chief Joe said, we all need to stand behind the strength that we have and the power that we have and the rights that we are given as First Nations people. So with that, thank you very much. And God bless. Hi, hi.
Thank you, Chief Delbert. It's an honor to introduce the next chief from Manitoba. Chief Christian Sinclair is well connected and regarded member of the Apaskuakiak First Nation in Manitoba and co-chair of Manitoba's Northern Economic Development Strategy. I know Chief Christian Sinclair, he's come to Osoyoos a few times, actively involved in promoting First Nations to be involved in the cannabis industry. Chief Sinclair.
Odanse, Kateyak, Kogamaganak, Natutamak, Nichaganak. Onigani Christian Sinclair, Nasanigasan, Pasquak, Cree Nation Otse, Nemne Nitene, Mamapia, Kuta, Treaty 7 Aski, Kuta, Sutina Aski. My name is Christian Sinclair. I'm the Oniganu, or the leader of the Opaskwayak Cree Nation, just acknowledging the chiefs here, the elders, and the ladies and gentlemen of the crowd, and the host of Sutuna for hosting us on their traditional territory here on Treaty 7 of Sutuna. Before I carry on, I just have to apologize. I woke up a little early here for a very early morning meeting, so I was very tired, and I had a dream last night. I dreamt I went to hell. I don't know if it's because of getting into the cannabis business or what, but I went up to the gate there, and the devil was there. He's not red, he's white. He's kidding. And he says, if you don't want to come to hell, you're going to have to go up back to earth, and you're going to have to go kiss the ugliest person you can find. I was like, okay, I'll do whatever it takes to stay out of this place. So I went up to earth, and I'm walking around, and I don't know what part of the world I was in, but anyways, I come across this person, just this ugly person, and when I finish, I'm walking back, and I'm thinking, okay, what happens next? And all of a sudden, I see a good friend of mine from Samson, Dean Lewis. Anyone know Dean Lewis here? And I see him, and he's kissing the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. I thought, what the heck? What's wrong with this picture? So all of a sudden, I go back down to hell. The devil says, okay, Chris Sinclair, you have passed a test. You can go back to earth. I said, well, before I do, I said, how come my friend there was kissing the most beautiful woman in the world I've ever seen? He says, because she had to do the same thing. True story. Okay, so with that, first of all, just wanted to acknowledge the leaders that are up here as well, because a lot of their stories are very similar to what we experience as Opaskwayak. And when we, first of all, acknowledging the fact that I've only been a chief for 2 years, so I'm new to this stuff. But very similar to what Chief Wapas had, inherited a community that was going into third party. Our corporation was near bankruptcy. So what we had to do was some very creative, out-of-the-box thinking. So what we did is we quickly analyzed all possible scenarios available to us in Canada. The banks were definitely not one of them. We were hostage to their policies. So we came across First Nations Financial Authority. And by understanding what they're designed to do, it allows us to borrow against future revenues on the international bond markets with our own source revenue. So from going into near third party, near bankruptcy, to borrowing against our future revenues, we were able to build a war chest of 56 million literally overnight. So we quickly made some strategic planning sessions and started to scour opportunities to clean up our books, but also look at other opportunities in tandem. And it was at that time where the ministers, Judy Wilson-Raybould, Justice Minister, as well as Minister Philpott, the Minister of Health, announced nationally and internationally that they would be legalizing cannabis. This was only 6-7 months into my term. And that they made it very clear that Indigenous people would be part of this new economy. So what we did is we quickly mobilized our economic team as well as our leadership and said, let's go out there and learn what this means. What is cannabis about? Aside from the stigma, it's going to be legal. Let's figure it out. So we attended a few conferences and learned very quickly that there was going to be a lot of competition on the growing side. And in our research, we found that where the new area was going to be was retail. And recognizing, as you all know, that this was still an illegal area, it had to go through 3 readings in the Senate. So we were really taking a major risk with our very limited resources based on future borrowing power. So when we did that, we quickly came across some companies on the retail side that were just in the process of establishing themselves. And it's one particular company that was in Manitoba was looking for First Nations to host their retail operations on those communities that had large urban environments. I come from northern Manitoba, 6.5 hours north, semi-remote, population of 6,000 members with about 3,500 on reserve. So very limited opportunity, forestry, fishing, trapping. I'm the son of a trapper, I'm the son of a fisherman. So I know how to catch wolves and skin them, and I know how to catch sharks and fillet them. No problem. But with that, we quickly positioned and we came across a company called National Access Cannabis. And what we had asked them was that instead of being a rung on your ladder because it wouldn't work in our market area, we asked, how do we become owner of the corporate ladder? And recognizing that we were in pretty tough financial shape, the question was, well, how much do you have? And we said, well, how much do you need? Not knowing what that number was going to be. So they came back and said they were just out in the market securing $6 million. And I asked, well, if we can take all of that, we will. So they made a call. They called their board members and they came back and said, it's all spoken for, but said, we'll meet. And I really pushed and encouraged them to let them know that we could become a strategic partner for them nationally and internationally. And they opened up a space for us for $3 million, which made us, unbeknownst to us at the time, the largest private shareholder. So since that time, as we started to roll out our plans, we were pretty heavily involved with them on lobbying with the provincial government and the federal government 14, 16 months ago. We were really a lone wolf at that time, going right through all the ministries, right up to the PMO's office, figuring out how were we going to fit into this strategy going forward from Canada. And they had no answers, they had no plan, they had no rhyme or reason of how we were going to fit into this. So we said, you know what, we're going to figure it out ourselves. So we started lobbying with the federal government, with the provincial government. And in the case of Manitoba, we actually were successful in ensuring that there was, in the RFP, 10 points put aside for First Nations in Manitoba. over 120 applications, and they only picked 4 master licensees, and we were one of those 4 that were selected, thank goodness. So fast forward to today, with National Access Cannabis, we will have over 300 pharmacies in our group by the end of next year. Within our retail brand, which is known as Meta, we have 10 locations in Manitoba and 4 located on First Nations. We'll have 1 in Saskatchewan, 37 in Alberta. I just came from a grand opening of one of them this morning. So 25 of them are under the New Leaf brand, 100% owned by Meta and National Access Cannabis, and 12 of them will be under the brand name of Meta. We'll have 8 in British Columbia, and with Ontario now opening, we will be pursuing the full 75 in the province of Ontario. Based on it, that gives us roughly 138 right now, with a potential to exceed 150. And we are presently in a hiring spree of 750 employees. With Ontario opening, we'll be well over 1,000. So a total of 1,750 employees is what we'll be seeking here very shortly. With this, in order for us to build all these out with the war chest that we were able to build up, we then made a strategic loan to avoid dilution on these build-outs across Canada. So we loaned $35 million to National Access Cannabis. And because of that move, some of the securities representatives approached us very quickly, saying they've never seen a move like that before in all their years, because it was a calculated risk, I call it, a very, I wouldn't say risky, but very strategic move on our part to maintain our share value, but at the same time allowing the bills to go out across Canada. So a company approached us, which is Trichome. This is a new company that's going to be going public shortly, so it's a specialty finance company, and I'll give you more detail on that. And from that, we were then approached by an international company, which is going to be making us one of the largest distributors and retailers in the United States. So going into that, we've taken a different road where we don't use so much the position of jurisdiction. But ironically, the monies we generate, we're going to be basically starting a table where we will either negotiate or mitigate with the province of Manitoba to ensure we protect our treaty rights as it relates to taxation. So we are the largest retailer in Canada as of today and growing. And on November 9th, 2018, we were the first legal First Nation dispensary to open in Canada under the legal framework. So Trichome, going into that piece, we are tailored as a credit-based capital solutions on a global scale, minus the United States. We are structuring and securing loans with significant asset value, collateral, and various structural protections to reduce losses on any possible downside scenarios, recognizing that we're just scratching the surface and getting going in this market potential. And our team, as someone said earlier, we invest not only in the company, but more importantly, we go meet these people that are leading these companies. So we invest more so in the individuals, their skill sets, and their know-how, as much as we invest in the company and the plan itself. And a large part of it, and I'm glad somebody had mentioned it here, was the fact that when we got into this, we did it through a process of respecting the plant. When we talked to our lawyers or with our elders, not once did they call it an illegal drug, they called it medicine, or as we say, Muskegee. And when we did our roundtable with our elders and with our leadership, every individual shared a story of someone in their family having to use it for cancer, for treating diabetes, lupus, etc. So when we went to go make the vote at our table, it was passed unanimously, which showed us that high level of respect, and we've conducted ceremony in respect of this medicine as we move forward. As we're moving into foreign markets, we are one of the largest partners on a foreign company now that will be securing the acquisition of manufacturing and distribution licenses throughout the United States, mainly in the Humboldt County of California. We're already presently ready to roll out 50,000 pounds, and this is a conservative estimate, where we will be creating our own lines of premium cannabis flower, extracts, edibles, vape pens, concentrates, and much more. So we've actually purchased a facility that will be right in the heart of Humboldt County in Northern California, and all of this will be geared towards the Los Angeles market and eventually rolling out across the rest of the U.S. where it's legal. Humboldt County itself, since 1960, this is where a lot of the hippies, if you will, went and hid themselves in the backcountry in Northern California, and they are known as some of the world's best growers. The potent strains that they create are known as the Emerald Triangle within the area that they grow them. These are second and third generation growers, and the demand from this area has skyrocketed since it's become legal in the state of California. So what we have created there is a very unique model, unlike anything you've seen anywhere in the world, where we have access to the product. We have the technology which built a framework and a foundation to deliver it. We have the manufacturing capability and capacity, and we have access to the largest market in the world. On the technology side, we have developed the best software capable of serving this market as it relates to cannabis from seed to retail. It basically handles inventory management, the point of sale, a blockchain payment system, and tax administration that will make it easier for the states that we operate in to administer and collect their tax. And we are offering this to the cultivators and the retailers free of charge. With that, and there's also another program where we negotiated with National Access Cannabis a model that ensured that as a First Nation partner, we weren't going to be someone that would be taken advantage of. So we negotiated very strong terms based on the investment that we made, that we would design and build this business on our terms, having them provide their experience and expertise. So when it comes down to the business model, all we pay for on the management fee is actual costs for payroll, operations, etc. Beyond that, 51% comes to the First Nation host community, in our case with the one in Opaskwayak. 49% goes to the company, of which we are 10% owners on that vehicle. So this gives you a little bit of idea of how we are very diversified on a local, national, and international scale now. And the beauty of this is with the monies that we are generating back to Opaskwayak and already generating some nice returns, we are using that to invest in our culture, language revitalization, sports, recreation, health, housing, infrastructure. So it's being used to rebuild our economy and our nation as we move forward. So with that,
Thank you, Chief Sinclair. When I looked at the panel, all the talent that was up here, I thought it was only fitting that INAC, Indian Affairs, also be up here, because one of my biggest issues back on my res is that Indian Affairs doesn't work at the speed of business. Our business partners, the window of business opportunity sometimes is very small. And we need Indian Affairs to work at the speed of business. We need the leasing process to be quicker. We need the referendum process on land designations to be quicker. The environmental assessments, I hate the SARA legislation. It should not apply to Indian reserves. If Indian Affairs, the federal government wants to protect species, don't turn Indian reserves into national parks. Go protect or create more national parks. I don't like it when I see non-natives cutting down plants that I can see a stone's throw away from my res, and then they tell us on the reserve, we're not allowed to do it because Indian Affairs says so. That's not right. And I've said for decades, we need more funding in economic development, and the additions to reserve process has to be moved quicker. As many reserves were ripped off on their economic lands, and now the only chance they have to develop an economy is through the ATR process. So Mohan Tenito, Director General, Economic and Business Opportunities from Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada, is up here on stage with us. Mohan is a Government of Canada executive leading a diverse team to promote economic development in partnerships with Indigenous peoples, the private sector, and other levels of government. Mohan.
Thank you very much, Chief. And thank you very much again to the Tsuut'ina people and my esteemed panel. I'm extremely humbled to be here up on this stage. When I was invited to be part of this panel, I asked the organizer, are you sure? Because I saw the names of the people. These are the heavy hitters and the leaders of economic development. So very humbled. And I'll just say, I agree with everything you said. We need to do better. We need to do better. And, you know, I think why it is important for me to be here, and I thought about this, right? Because I've been on this job for a year, and I have a history in government. I've been in government for 20 years. But it's important for me to be here, not because necessarily of who I am or my background, but because of who I represent. And I remember I told you in my last presentation that I was up in Dene territory for a while. And when I first arrived there, I was head of the regional office, and that was my job. And my crew was going out for treaty payments, right? And I told them I want to come. And they said, why? The RDG never comes on treaty. And I said, because it's important. And it's important because it symbolizes and represents and is that fundamental historical relationship that goes back to treaty. And I know a lot of people have mentioned that. And I know the relationship has not always been good. There's a lot of bad things that have happened over the past few hundred years, and I recognize that I represent the Crown. And so whether you're critical of the Crown and the work I do, or happy with that work, I'll be here. And I'll be here to hear your concerns. Some of the things that were raised in the last 2 days are above my pay grade, but that doesn't mean that I'm not accountable. And that doesn't mean that I'm not going to take a lot of the messages that I've heard here over the last few days and take that back with me. So again, thank you for welcoming me here. So I'll talk a little bit about what I do with that introduction. As the chief mentioned, I oversee a bunch of programs that promote and support economic development with First Nations across this country, about 700 First Nations. And again, as I mentioned in my last presentation, huge potential here. There are more than 250 community-owned economic development corporations, which contribute over $8 billion to the Canadian economy in 2016. And those are just the latest stats. I'm sure over the last 2 years, it's grown. They support small business owners in the community, invest in employee training, and provide funding for social, cultural, and educational projects. And that is so important. Not all businesses do that. The majority of revenues go right back into the community. In 2011, an estimated 43,000 Indigenous-owned businesses were operating, so in addition to those community-owned businesses, and I mentioned that earlier. And what we're in the business of doing is supporting First Nations, Indigenous people, community-owned businesses to close the socioeconomic gap through business. That's the business that I'm in. And if we do this, there is an opportunity for a $27.7 billion growth in the Canadian economy, representing 1.5% of GDP. That is just incredible. That is a challenge that we have before us, and that is a challenge I, as part of this government, is willing to accept and support you in. And that would translate into 173,000 fewer Indigenous people living in poverty. So I'm committed to supporting business to help us get there. So I've told you a little bit about our programs, but I have a little video to play for you. And it was done with Millbrook First Nation. Is there anyone here is Millbrook in the house? Okay, we don't have anyone from Millbrook. We collaborated on this video. I think it speaks better than I could ever speak in terms of the benefits of economic development. And I think the one challenge we face, and my program faces, is A, moving at the pace of business, improving the land transaction speed, developing a better sense of risk around those transactions, but also some more supporting smaller communities. We have some communities here that are very, very successful, and that's great. There are a lot of communities that are just starting on the path of business development. Millbrook is one of the First Nations that is by the highway, has a lot of great opportunities, and it's a great example. I want to challenge myself and my program to see how can we also support smaller communities and smaller First Nations? So with that, I'll play the video, and I'll leave Millbrook First Nation to say the final words. Is there any volume?
It's been here for 32 years, going on 33, and I absolutely love it here. And it's an amazing community to be a part of.
I think the main thing that I like about Millbrook is how, like again, how small and tight knit it is, and how close everyone is with everyone.
We feel very grateful for Millbrook. They took a big leap of faith in us as a new startup company, giving us a huge commercial contract. It was quite a mess we had to tackle, and they believed in us, gave us good feedback.
I really feel like Millbrook believes in every single one of its community members. I think when someone invests in you, you feel like you want to put your all into it and really make the people who believe in you proud. And like, I know that if it wasn't for Millbrook, I wouldn't be living the life I want to live.
They definitely run our community as a business more than just a community. But it's because we have people who genuinely care about how we progress forward from here.
Well, I look forward to the community with some of the development that we're looking at now. It's trying to look at it from a perspective of being 7 generations ahead. Always looking at reinvesting in our community. That's one of the mottos of our community, is that we invest in our community, we invest in our people.
Millbrook's economic success and giving back to the community is great, and it's going to be awesome for my son when he grows up, because he'll have the opportunity to tap into some of this stuff. So with the education, with the treaty grant funding that gets put into a trust for him when he turns 19.
This community, I guess, is well respected for its leadership and where they're heading in the future and where they're taking us as community members.
Being a part of a team sometimes gives you the ability to recognize other people's feelings, and that not everybody is perfect, and sometimes we make mistakes, but if we continue to work together, then we will continue to move forward together.
So I just want to thank Millbrook First Nation for putting that video together for us. And relating to the cannabis industry, there's a huge, huge opportunity. We've changed our program to make cannabis eligible. Previously, there was a very paternalistic approach that didn't allow alcohol, tobacco, and gaming as eligible activities. So that's all included now, including cannabis. So we changed our terms and conditions. We have 7 proposals right now through our community opportunity readiness program that we know of that are in development for funding support. And as Health Canada mentioned, there are a number of Indigenous companies that are now licensed or going through the process. So we're there to provide support where needed. Thank you very much. Masicho.
Thank you, Mohan. On behalf of the organizers, I want to thank you for putting this panel together. So on behalf of Grand Chief Joe Norton, Chief Delbert Wapaz, and Chief Christian Sinclair, Limlimp, for sharing your wisdom and your words here today. And I know many people, I want a couple of business cards from this panel up here. And that's what we got to do in Indian country. We got to learn from one another, share our stories, go to school on each other's successes, and find out how some bands or some First Nations are making industry, the cannabis industry, part of their res. So to the organizers, thank you. Thank you for having me here today, and awesome conference, awesome group of people I met here today in my few hours that I've been here. So to Treaty 8, and to Tsuut'ina, Limlimp, thank you, everybody. Question? Question from the floor?
Yeah. I want to thank the the hosts for welcome us to their territory, right? Because what we came here for is a bunch of education and to get in and not miss the boat, to say, you know, and it seems like we've missed the boat, but yet we haven't. We're the ones that are steering the boat, and the leadership that's here and other people from community, even components that want to start up or have started up. What we should have done is supported each other and even signed petitions at the door when we come in, supporting each nation that we're going to work together, or even support the ones that are going out there and taking a risk and starting their own. We should all collaborate in that way and form. But I want to thank Clarence for I know Clarence, I've met him, I don't know if he remembers me, but our nation from Squamish Nation. My ancestral name is Gaslas. It comes from Frank Nelson, his dad. It's a name going back way long ago, and it means one who's there for the people, one who has a seat in the big house. It's a big name. And my traditional name is Richard Baker, from the traditional territory of the Squamish people, a Squamish Nation counselor, who I am. But Clarence, I met you a few years ago when you guys first opened up your place up in the Soyas. I went up there with Gibby and some of my other colleagues about 16 years ago and met you, right? And I always liked the way you talked. You're a straight shooter, and I'm kind of jealous because some of the opportunities that you got in your territory were by my venture capitalist friend. He told me about the prison that we were supposed to get, because I told my co-chairs and they didn't listen. And they thought I was just dreaming, but the prison now is on your territory when it should have been on ours, because it's a guaranteed check. And what I see these panels, and I want to thank Joe. Hosted many of your people from your territory. We have some of them living in our community, Bordeaux, Heath Bordeaux, and I know Sterling Deer and many others, Mike Mitchell, and a lot of people from all over, right? And I want to thank the other chiefs, St. Clair, and the gentleman there with that big business they got going for your community. And, you know, and I like that education that you gave. But what I want to really do is say to the people that are here is you have a chance to mingle and you have a chance to work together. Maybe you might not have the area and the location for prime retail, but you have a lot of opportunity in many different levels. Maybe we all won't get LPs, but maybe we can work in there somehow where we can all have a chance. I'm a recovered alcohol addict and proud to be one. And after I cleaned up, I became a leader in my nation. So there's people that believe in people that have been there and done that. But we have a chance and we cannot miss out on this opportunity. I got on this committee or the working group on our council, but I didn't want to be in it because I'm in recovery. Even though I got 16 years, I'm only one step away from screwing up my life, and I choose not to do it, right? But I had different feelings about this, right? And now I'm all in on the business level. I'm looking for the opportunities, and as we had many people knock at the door. St. Clair was one of the first people that came to our territory and hosted us with a bunch of sit down and break bread and discuss what was coming. And, you know, that's over a year and a half ago, Chief? You know, and he's a good man, and there's a lot of good people here that have opportunities that they want to reach out. And they're First Nations. That's what I support, is First Nations to First Nations. Hopefully we could collectively all work together, but get educated from when we leave here, that you grab cards, you grab pamphlets, you grab phone numbers, and we literally work together, because I don't want to see us like the old gentleman said yesterday, the elder, that don't want to just go home and go to sleep. What we want to do is keep going, right? Have your wits about you and pick somebody good that you're going to go with, and offer all those people that want to come knocking on your door, because you never know, there might be something and it'll be there for your nation, right? So I want to thank the hosts for hosting us here. I'm on the next plane out, but I want to thank the panel for being there. I got almost enough stuff that I need, but I still need more. We want to do the business venture in our territory of Vancouver. Squamish Nation's where I'm from, but we own lots of land in Vancouver. So Haichkasiam, Hasqualoan, thank you.
Miigwech, and we're going to wrap up here really quick, but I just want to make a couple points that, as well as Mohan. It's humbling to actually be up here with these gentlemen. And again, just some things that I heard that really stuck out here. Money means opportunity. That man that left here, the hardliner about jobs, about economic opportunity, certainly one of our more renowned leaders who basically is fitting to moderate such a panel. Our own type of health system, as Grand Chief Joe Norton, you do what your people want and what the industry will bear. Taking a self-determined approach, we can work together progressively. Opportunities come from the relationships that we develop, as Chief Wapas indicated. Using money as leverage, jurisdiction. Interesting, Chief Sinclair, he raised a very, very important perspective here. He said, we went after the money first. We didn't use the jurisdictional argument. And now that we have the money, we can actually deal with jurisdiction. It makes total sense, and I think that that's the type of insight that we wanted to establish here. So again, very strategic business players here, and I think it was quite fitting that we had such a panel here, and the insights and the experience, and you know, all the challenges that we heard here throughout the last couple of days. You know, we see that, we see the leaders here. There was a question here earlier the last couple of days. I heard it twice. Where are the leaders? Where are the chiefs? The chiefs came. And I think they deserve a big round of applause. Let's give them another round of applause for their efforts and their experience. So what is the goal? Again, as we end here, we've got some things to consider. We certainly want to do things in this way. I think the last speaker that came to the mic, he was very insightful in talking about coming together collectively and supporting one another. I think there were some central goals here that we've established, bringing people together in this cannabis space, establishing a collective lens on the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities and threats. Also having a discussion on cannabis issues, establishing the dialogue on the specific things that are standing in our way, and setting a direction. Where do we go in this diverse cannabis space? And again, we heard here that there's 1.57% of the national GDP will be this cannabis space. And I think it's really important for us to recognize that we still have access to that. And I think, you know, based on even everybody that was here, Chief Sinclair gave us a really good lay of the land in terms of how he done this work in a short time, not by himself, but in his community, going to the elders and actually getting the dialogue in the direction and taking the traditional approach of respecting the plant. All of our speakers, our panels, they gave us a lot of really good examples throughout the last couple days, and it's been suggested, first and foremost, we need to recognize, we need to respect, and we need to support jurisdiction, and we need to do that together. Where are we going from here? Again, you've given us a lot to work with. I've been honored, you know, with a great privilege to be here to help support this push. I'd love to be in a position to have the business opportunities that these gentlemen are talking about, and it's just not my place at this time. I'm here to help where I can, and as a result of that, I will help share the leadership and the work that needs to be done going forward. Our goal now is to establish a report from this forum, this conference, to establish the working group and the terms of reference, having a policy think tank on some of those key things that are so diverse within this cannabis space. We've got a lot of work to do, and because we've been set back and we've been an afterthought, you know, we need these examples and we need this experience to build from. We're going to look at establishing a framework for a toolkit, and then we want to have a conference in February. All in all, I just want to say thank you on behalf of the organizers, and again, keep Howard Silver in your thoughts and prayers. He's not here to enjoy this, but he certainly was the shoulder behind this, and you know, he's still on the mend, and he's going to get better. Your prayers are greatly appreciated. As we close here, it's always customary to recognize and acknowledge the Tsutsina territory and the protocols and prayers in in the community in which we're at. And I want to say again, it's been a great honor and pleasure to be here. Your hospitality is second to none. The example of Chief Lee Crowchild and what the community has done here with the cannabis opportunity is excellent. This is the first National Indigenous Hemp and Cannabis Conference. We will do this again. We will continue to grow. But what a fitting place to actually do this this great work. And again, with the leadership and vision of Tsutsina, let's give this community a big round of applause. And thank you, Chief Lee Crowchild. As such, there are so many people. Again, we didn't get a chance to mention all the vendors and all the sponsors. You're there. You will get letters. We will definitely acknowledge you as we go forward and move to our next event. The Eagle Law Group has another draw. Chris Bauer of Osoyoos won 2 tickets to the Flames versus the Jets, and 4 tickets for Flames versus Jets. Kelly Running Rabbit, Siksika Legal Services. Again, those can be picked up at the back. Brandon Derbyshire, Joseph, winner of the noise canceling headphones from the draw for the Gallagher Insurance booth. Again, we want to thank everybody for being here. It's been a great honor and great pleasure. Again, thank the community. And as we close out, we would ask the elder and the drummer to assist us in closing this and sending off this conference and its delegates in a good way. And again,